You ask a mediocre CEO what makes them successful, and they'll tell you about the strategy. They'll tell you about their execution. They'll tell you about their team. You ask a brilliant CEO or somebody that really knows what's going on, you ask them what made them successful, and they'll tell you that they never quit.
This is the Insurance Technology Podcast, where we bring interesting people from across the insurance ecosystem to discuss and debate technology's impact on the industry. Join us each episode for insights and best practices from industry stewards and tomorrow's innovators. Now, here's your host, Reid Holsworth.
And we're back with Will Shaw once again. In this episode, we get advice for Insurtech founders just starting in the business. And we get to hear a little bit more about Will, what he does outside of Better Agency. Stay tuned. And you guys have done a lot. You've built a lot of automation in your program. It's cool. It's modern tech. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't start to move up market. So what do you see? What's the crystal ball, Will? You get acquired at some point from a large strategic? I know you get this question all the time. Would you sell to strategic? You know, is that opportunity there? Do you foresee that, or do you go after it and crush them?
It's always out there. I'll say this, because we did. I mentioned this earlier. We raised $500K. We did a seed round last year. We raised a little bit more. If it was about the money and getting acquired, I just wouldn't have raised money, because I would own more, and I'd take this thing a little bit slower, and I would sell to a strategic in the space. Right? We know the big names. There's other names in this play. There's plenty of PE firms. Yep. I'm going to take this as far as we can go. I don't know what it looks like. I know I'm very clear on our next 3 years. I know everybody says this. I know I never sell to a Vertafore Applied, and I want to go and, be a real third player to Vertafore Applied. That's what everybody says. I don't know if that's in their game. What's that?
I used to say that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and say that. What I'm going to sit here and say is the direct-to-consumer model is failing. Geico's rolling out local offices.
Yep.
Captives are moving independent. There's more smaller insurance agencies popping up, and that trend is going to continue. And what we want to do is help be at the forefront of making it so that by 2030, every policy is sold through an independent. And I think that's not like a far-fetched dream scenario for the independent insurance agencies. I think the insurance industry is going to grow, and that sounds good. I think that's going to be a lot of competition for insurance agencies out there. I think that there's going to be more M&A activity on insurance agencies that don't get their act together. But I want to be at the forefront of that. I want to deliver on the technology that allows an independent to really have the same technology and provide the same experience that a direct-to-consumer Insurtech can provide. And so whatever that means, if that means we get acquired, if that means we don't get acquired, if that means we compete, if that means we don't ever compete, I don't view an agency as having to have a CRM or an AMS, and that's what we're commonly referred to. I think what an insurance agency needs is a platform to help them grow and a platform to help them be successful, however they define that. And so that's kind of what we're trying to create and kind of see where it takes us. And I'm not going anywhere at this point. I'm obsessed with this problem. I view you as probably the same. That's probably why you're back in the industry. Is I want to solve the problems that have been created here. And I think this is really an industry that people should be looking at and being I want to get into insurance because it's a great opportunity for me and my family. And instead of looking at I just fell into insurance, or, I'm in insurance, I'm stuck in it, it's just a place to play golf. No, real opportunities are created here, and I want to be a part of that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So, not the best on golf. I'd love to go play golf too.
So give some advice to the young bucks out there that are starting startups and aren't as far along as you. What kind of advice would you give to these guys?
I would say I saw something earlier today, and I think this is true. You ask a mediocre CEO what makes them successful, and they'll tell you about the strategy. They'll tell you about their execution. They'll tell you about their team. You ask a brilliant CEO or somebody that really knows what's going on, you ask them what made them successful, and they'll tell you that they never quit. And I think that's the reality in life, and I don't think startups are any different. I think you have to push through And I think it's going to be hard, and I think it's difficult. And I think, depending on what time of day you ask me on whether I like my job or not, you're going to get a different answer. Like it's an emotional roller coaster on an hour by hour basis. Right now, I like my job, but I guarantee you within the next 3 hours, I'm going to hate my job. Like it's just the way it is. And you've got to be willing to push through that. And you've got to be dedicated enough to what you're trying to work on is important enough to push through that, because it is a real sacrifice. And if it was like about money, or if it was about like, whatever, I would have quit a long time ago, because it just wouldn't make sense to pursue this. Like you only want, like, you've got to really be passionate about something to bash your head against the wall continuously. And that's what running a startup is like, and getting off the ground. And it's, the one thing I'll say is that, it took us 2 years to get to our first $1 million in revenue. It took us 8 months to get to our next $1 million, and continues to get shorter and shorter to get to our next $1 million. And I've seen that across the board with other companies. And so that, getting it off the ground is the hardest part. And you just try to keep figuring it out. You solve more problems. Just be a problem solver. Be a problem solver both for what you're providing in your software, but be a problem solver for your business. If you can solve enough problems, you can last long enough to give yourself more opportunities. If you stop solving problems, you're going to run out of opportunities, and you're going to have to fold your business. But if you can keep solving problems, you can keep playing the game. The longer you play the game, the better your odds are of being successful. That's kind of, I view it like a poker game. Just stay alive.
That's awesome advice, man. It is. It's easier said than done. And I think a lot of people don't realize, coming into it, the pain you have to endure in a startup. And like you said, all the pushback, there's so many times where you're just like, are they right? Like, should I just quit? Like,
what's funny?
Stupid,
I agree. Yeah, it dawned on me like a month or two ago. Like, the easy part is putting in the hours. Like, everybody talks about, you got to be okay putting in 40, 50, 60 hours. Yeah, that happens sometimes. That's not the hard part. Mm-mm. The hard part is going home at 5 o'clock and trying to not look at my phone and be 100% present for my wife and my 2-year-old daughter.
Oh, yeah.
That's the hard part. That going home and trying to do that at the end of a day when you're up at 4 and you're going through that, the hard part's not the work. The hard part is go to try to be present. They're present on the weekends. Be present to your family. Be present to the other things that matter, because what happens, you get in a dangerous place when it's like your startup or bust. And that's all you end up caring about, and everything else sacrifices. That's what happened to me with football, honestly. It's like it was football or bust, and I ended up in a bad mental place. I think the work is the easy part, but trying to be able to keep a balance in your life and keep perspective and be present for those moments with your family or whatever is important to you is the real tough part.
It's really tough. I was a good friend of mine, was looking at getting involved in this fresh startup. And I flew out and hung out. He's like, hey, I want you to come and meet the CEO. So I'm sitting down, we're having a bunch of drinks. Dude invites us over to his house, blah, blah, blah. And this guy's just straight corporate. He's always been corporate. He's just starting his first startup. He saved up some money, got a mortgage out on the house, equity line to fund this thing. Right. And I'm kind of talking to him and I meet his wife as well, and nice people, good people. But it became real apparent that they had no idea what's to come, and the amount of pressure that's going to put on their family and their life. It's not like, it was him working at, one of these really large organizations. It's very different. And it's funny, I found myself coaching the guy's wife on what this is going to look like in the next year. And they were like, what do you mean? Like, no, we have it off. No, it's not. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Right. And ultimately, my buddy did end up, he took on the position of CTO for this company, and it just fell apart. The whole thing fell apart, it was because of that. It really was. It's tough. I tell people all the time, when you start a startup, it's not just you. Your spouse is starting a startup. Listen, we launched in 2019. I was doing a bunch of side work to pay bills because I didn't make $1 from salary in 2019, 2020. It wasn't until 2021 I started making $2,000 a month. And during that time, we sold the house, remodeled a house, went through COVID, had a daughter. My wife was fully prepared, I'm probably going to make no money. Unfortunately, we were able to handle that.
and kind of like weather that storm. And now I get a paycheck from Better Agency, which is nice. But like it is like when you start a startup, like it is tough. Like your spouse is starting that startup as well because they're going to be a part of it.
Yeah. That's right. And I mean, I think advice when you're starting out is you guys have to be on the same page. That look, at least for me, man, no matter how hard you try, you're going to bring that shit home. Yeah. I mean, I don't care who you are. You're going to bring that shit home. And it's, I mean, dude, you're talking about, Friday at noon, you need to come up with $200,000 to make payroll for your team. You're already not getting paid. I got to find money. And I'm like, dude, this is a real story for me. I'm calling friends and family like, can I borrow $200,000? And they're just hammering you fucking like loser. Like, what do you mean? How do you not have,
Right.
And just pounding through that, getting it done. It's like, whew, coming home, sitting down at dinner and, you got to be there, man. And it is not easy,
It's tough. It is tough to be that. I think that's the hard part. Like, how do you figure out how to, don't lie to yourself and say you can't bring it home. Like, don't lie to yourself and say you won't. Like, because it's not realistic. I'm a verbal processor. My wife is very, like, she is not employed by Better Agency, but, like, I've never seen a startup work if you're married, if you have a spouse. I've never seen a startup be successful if you're not successful in your home life. If you've got turmoil going on in your home life, I've never seen somebody be able to run a successful business and have turmoil at home. Like, it takes both. I haven't seen it work.
100%, dude. It's you got to have the support system, and have an understanding around it. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of you. And I think you're right. You got to just keep fighting, man. You got to keep pushing. The other thing that people don't understand is that as a founder and CEO, you have a bigger family outside of your personal life. You're taking care of these people's families as well. Right. And you're responsible for that. Yeah. And it's a lot. So no, it's super good advice, man. So, all right. Couple more questions, Will, then we'll get out of here. What do you do for fun these days?
Oh man. I would love to say like I get up into Colorado and Montana and Idaho and go snowboarding all winter long. The reality is I don't. I get like 1 or 2 days and I make the most of it. I'm a big like backcountry hiker and like snowboarder. Like we go camping, we're in avalanche gear, we'll hella ski, stuff like that. But
wow.
We'll get up there. I wish I could say I get to play golf. I don't play golf anymore. I just don't have. There's a severe the efficiency of my life that I try to operate in there's not a lot of time. So what I do for fun, like my morning routine is like my favorite thing. I'm very big on like getting up early, not just to get up early, but I get up early so that I can do my thing. So I get the things that are important to me done before I look at Better Agency stuff. Like I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I can do my meditation. I can do my Bible study. I can go to the gym. I can read. I can journal. I do all that stuff, and it takes a long time all morning, and then I can wake my daughter up every morning. So I'm really big on that. I'd say that what I do for fun is honestly like I am having my daughter's about to turn 2 next month, and it's an absolute blast right now. Like I got to take her. I took her up to the mountain, got her on skis, and she's starting to figure out life and like kick a soccer ball and like play around with some plastic golf clubs, like anything athletic that she wants to do. Like I'm all in on it. It's like, so right now that's really where I get a lot of joy. So that's where I try to spend my time because I'm really intentional on that right now.
That's awesome. What's so last question. What's your favorite drink?
What's my favorite drink?
Do you drink?
I do. So, I mean, to go along with the theme of like growing up with a father that's like traveled internationally and spoke language, my wife is from France.
Okay.
We speak French in our household to our daughter. Like, so she's a big wino. So like I was never into wine. Now I love red wine. Wine and cheese is like my love language at this point. Like that's always around our house. But like my favorite drink is probably a Belvini, 21-year-old age and finished aged in sherry cask and finished in the port cask. That is my favorite. I'm a big Scotch guy. That is probably my favorite drink.
I think that's the most specific answer I've ever gotten on this podcast.
I bought that bottle like 4 years ago. It's only halfway through. Like, it's a very special occasion where like that is my favorite drink. And so something good has happened if I have that, or something bad has happened and I have that.
Oh, man. Well, no, hey, look, this has been really good, Will. Appreciate you coming on. You guys are crushing it. Keep after it, man. You know, you're doing what you did and you've always done, and just keep pushing forward. And it shows. You guys have, in a short period of time, have really made a great name for yourselves and are building a really great business. And so in a very hard place to compete in as well. And I say that from experience, you know. So congrats on the success.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Wow, well, that was awesome. Will Shaw, what a guest. Over those 3 episodes, we really got to learn about Will. And I think, you know, I said it all the way throughout, but the drive this guy has and the passion to just win is just amazing. And I mean, he's done so much in his career and overcome so much. It's just wild. And one of the things that sticks out to me too is just hearing about his time at the NFL and how he said, man, everybody is at the top of their game, from the catering to everything. And so it just kind of living in that was really interesting. You know, what else is funny is that during this episode, or during this interview, Will was actually going through a little something. He was working on something. Kristen, this is new news as of a couple days ago. What happened there?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting that you asked him whether he was looking to grow or to be acquired. But on May 2nd of 22, a Better Agency raises $8 million in Series A financing. So this was huge news and great for Will and everybody over at Better Agency.
That's so awesome. I mean, those guys are going to crush it. Like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, now he's got the cash to go make it really happen. Not that he wasn't before, but we all know having that dry powder in the bank, you can do a lot with $8 million, right? So what did you think, Kristen? What did you think about the episodes and Will?
Yeah, you know, so this is the first time that I was able to kind of ask questions about the person in the beginning, and he's a really interesting person. But I think, you know, he put a lot of why he thinks he is where he is from his experiences, but I think some of it was just innate in him. You know, even how he got to the NFL. Like, I had said to you, I feel like, you know, you don't make it into the draft, right? He doesn't. he gets rejected from a couple schools. Like, I would have quit trying to get to the NFL way before he did, but his drive was there and he kept going. And, you know, to be able to say that you were on the Eagles is quite an amazing story.
Just brutal, like living in a hotel and like having like a relationship far away, right? Just wild. Right. And he just kept pushing. I mean, you're right. I don't know. I've been through a lot. I feel like I pushed through stuff. At some point I would have been like, this is it. Right. I mean, you know,
or them, you know, they don't find out if they're going to make the team because they don't want to pay them. Like, that has to be the most stressful thing ever, is like, is Tuesday going to come and you just don't have a job anymore?
That's crazy. I didn't know this was even a thing. You know, it's so wild. So wild. What a good dude, though. I mean, so what do you think about, you know, as we've kind of talked to founders of new insurtechs and founders of the original insurance technology companies, are you starting to see any kind of trend there with all of them, with all the people we've interviewed thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it when we were talking to Doug Roller, but, you know, it's just good people. And I think I think you have to be a good person if you're going to be in a services related organization, because at the end of the day, it comes down to those relationships. It comes down to, you know, providing a service to your customers. And, you know, I love that that Will's like, I don't want to be an AMS or a CRM. I just want to be able to help agencies. And I think, again, that goes back to some of the founders, right? They were trying to solve problems to make people's lives better.
Yeah, solving real problems and not focusing on the shiny objects and whatnot. That's interesting. You're right. And, you can't fake being a good person. I mean, you can for a little bit, but it catches up to you. It's not to say that bad people aren't successful, but I don't know. Maybe it's just this industry, or maybe it's just a business thing in general. Like people that start these things and change industries and do really cool stuff and become really successful. They are good people, I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, it could just be this industry. I mean, I haven't worked in other industries quite as long as I've been in the insurance industry, but it seems like everybody making sure you don't burn bridges is very important in this industry, right? Because everybody is interconnected some way. I've worked with people at my first job that have come full circle, and all of a sudden I'm working with them again as clients. So, I'm sure that there's other industries out there that are like that, but I forget which one of our past guests said it, but it's a big industry, but that's fairly small if you think about, the people that are influencing and working in it.
So it's crazy that you say that, because I've been reading this book. It's called The Daily Laws by Robert Greene. Real quick, simple stuff just to kind of like reorient yourself, right? And literally this morning, no joke, I read this and it says, Daily Law, swallow the impulse to offend, even if the other person seems weak. The satisfaction is meager compared to the danger that someday he or she will be in a position to hurt you. Isn't that crazy? It's basically talking about, and it goes into explain what that is. And that's May 5th, if anybody wants to pick up the book and read it. It goes into explain that. Like, it comes back around and bites you in the ass, right? And if you offend somebody and you're a bad person, someone, you never know who they're gonna become or when you're gonna meet that person again. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's what it is, being a good person in that way. But it's easier said than done, right? I think sometimes we judge and we look at people and we think things, but just shut your freaking mouth. Don't do it, because it'll bite you in the ass in the end. It's so funny you said that. It's crazy.
Well, and then, coming back around to Will, right? So you brought it up. He didn't just talk about the people that impacted him in the NFL as being coaches and trainers. It was everybody, right down to, the cleaning crew and the people that were cooking the meals, right? So everybody has their role. It doesn't matter what role you have, it's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what an awesome guest. Really, really good. There's a new agency management system in town, among others, and we'll have more to come.
According to Will, it's not an agency management system. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forget. This industry needs acronyms. We need to have an acronym for this thing, right?
Yeah, no, just to make it a better experience for agents, right? So.
Hey, that's why it's better agency.
There you go.
Right?